Check. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. Today, we are going to discuss the Penner really owning the situation in Denver. We're going to talk about what the new ownership, well, it's not technically new, but the current ownership, what it was before during the entire mess with the Bolins, how that transfer of power has helped the Broncos shape to be in terms of the better, because we started off really bad, but then as the time went along, we hit a stride, and now we are on the course of something great. Also, Libre and I are going to talk about what happened in the Super Bowl, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and definitely the end of this so-called three-peat. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you have your drinks, snacks, and everything ready, because you don't want to miss a single second of what we got coming. So here we go.
Broncos talk, let's rock, feel the energy rise. From the microphone to the fans reaching the skies. Every episode a thrill and surprise. For the love of the game, we harmonize.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adan Diaz, and I am the host of Broncos Talk. And joining me to my left or right, depending on which side you're watching, is my co-host, Bronco Libre. Bronco, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well.
Libre, you look a little bit different tonight. Did you get a haircut?
You know, I didn't get a haircut. I got them all cut.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you have to excuse me. I'm still getting over a cold, so you might hear me coughing at random times. I'm going to try to mute myself so I don't constantly pass the germs over to all you guys out there. But that's unfortunate. That's what happens when you live in the area where I live in, where it's always cold, and no matter how bundled up you are, or you're just around people, and you know that stuff's going to get you regardless. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a really exciting weekend of football. It's the last exciting week of football for a very, very good while. It's going to be, Jesus, how long, Libre? Like 5 months before we hear helmets and pads clash?
No, it's longer
in
than that.
August, I think, is the closest.
Yeah, it's going to be in August, so 6 months away.
Jesus Christ. You know, thank God for YouTube and highlights, because if I had to go 6 months without, I'd have to probably record the sound somewhere or something just to help me get through the day, because, oh, my God.
You know what I feel like, especially having this off, and we're talking about NFL football, that we have like 6 months before preseason starts and at the end of July when the opening of training camp. But, you know, UFL is going to be coming out here pretty soon as well. I know a lot of people don't like to watch it just because it's not the brand of football that we typically love with the NFL. But me personally, I like it. When it was the XFL, when it came back in the XFL, and then they unified after year 2 with the UFL, I feel like it's just another alternative itself. You have to remember, we had one of our backup quarterbacks came from that league, Ben DiNucci, a couple years ago. So that league is what I know that they're trying to do it as a feeder league, like almost like a minor league system for the NFL. I know it's something a little bit harder, like how baseball has their minor leagues, how the NBA has the G League or whatnot. It is harder for the NFL to have something similar to that, but just seeing this and watching these, it's just now you're still watching professional football, and I love that part about it. So, and it starts here sometime in March, so I have to look at it again.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to give it a shot. I know I said last year I would, and I didn't, but I'm really going to try. I swear to you, I'm really going to try to watch as much of it and try to intake it and give it a fair chance before I say, hey, this isn't really for me. And like Libre said, we encourage you guys to do the same. So hopefully you'll join me in that journey. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get started with all of today's shenanigans or talk or whatever it is you guys like to see us do here on this show, we have a couple of things to get out of the way. For those of you that are here for the very first time, welcome. For those of you that aren't, welcome back. But we want to remind you guys that we want to have your support here on the show. So we're asking for you guys to please subscribe and share, comment, and like here on the Orange and Blue Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of great shows here on the network, just in case Broncos Talk is not your cup of tea, which is totally fine. In case you guys missed it, yesterday on the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, Johnny and Jay got their very first super chat donation. It was amazing. It was historic. History in the making. I talked to Johnny earlier today, and he was so ecstatic. So congratulations to those guys over there on getting their very first super chat in the show's history. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not only just streaming on the Orange and Blue Network, we're also on the MHRT Network. So we're asking you guys to please also subscribe, share, comment, and like on all of their shows. They have a lot of great programming as well. Sometimes we do kind of coincide with each other. So in case you're not able to watch everything live at the same time, it's perfectly fine. That's why we ask that you please like and subscribe so you can always go back and watch when you have more leisurely time, if that's a word. For those of you listening to us on audio, wherever it is you're listening to us on podcast form, we ask you to give us 5-star reviews and screenshot it so you can send it to us so we can give you a shout out and personally thank you for your support, which is always very well appreciated. You can hit us up on our socials. Mine is at a 6'10" Mexican at the bottom. Libre's is at Bronco Libre 5280. If you guys can't read I changed the font because I thought it looked cool. So if you can't read it, I do apologize. But you can always keep up there. We're always down and happy to talk about all things football. For any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. And of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor for today's show, like we do every week, which is W. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what W is, I pushed the wrong button because I am not, I was never good in high school getting stuff ready. 30-something years later. But ladies and gentlemen, W is your taste buds' favorite energy drink. Ladies and gentlemen, they have a lot of great flavors for you guys to choose from. They have Calo Cream. They have the green, the Dub Sludge, Granny Smith Apple with their secret sauce. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, it's all the good stuff without all the bad. And what do I mean by that? Let me tell you. Basically, W was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Their formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, including their patented neurofactor formula. Basically, W contains no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. Basically, all the bad stuff with just the good stuff. And to show you guys how nice we are here at the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, our friends over at the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue would like to give you guys 10% off at checkout. So make sure you use the code NRWO10 to get 10% off at checkout. Again, that code is NRWOB10 to get 10% off at checkout when you're ready to buy all of your favorite flavors. Shout out to W for being a sponsor, and shout out to the guys over at the flagship show Nothing Rhymes With for the 10% hookup. Libre.
I'm tired of
be my successor, and you're going to have to do everything I just said, but better.
I don't know if I can do it better. You did such a wonderful job.
Excuse me. It's just practice, man. It's just practice. So before we get started, I did see we have a comment here joining us here live. Dakota Whitehouse saying, hello, Dakota. Thank you so much for being a supporter. Thank you so much for being a supporter. My salute to you, Dakota, for joining us here on the show. And hey, even the font for the comments changes. I just realized that. I maybe it's done that before and I didn't realize it, but leave me alone. I'm getting old. But Libre, I thought we would get started before we started to talk about the topic of today's show. I was saving it for the Broncos OT part of the show, but I feel like since everybody's talking about it, can't wait. Let's talk Super Bowl. The Super Bowl just happened 2 days ago from the airing of the show. And who did you pick to win the Super Bowl last week? Just to recap.
I think I did pick the Eagles. The Fly Eagles Fly.
Yes, sir. So did I. Fly Eagles Fly. And man, these guys went stealth bomber mode, whatever the fastest flying thing in the world is, whether it's mechanical or mammal. I mean, they went hard. And ladies and gentlemen, I sat here last week and I told you, and I wish I would have put money on it because then I actually would have won something. I told you guys that one of the keys to victory, one of them I thought was going to be Saquon. I was wrong on that part. But these guys, the defense, Vic Fangio played chess while the Chiefs were playing checkers. I mean, the man got to Patrick Mahomes without blitzing a single time. Not once. And the only time that they did, they got called back because it was a penalty on the Eagles. And it got called back. So seeing that Eagles front defensive line, literally, even though they only got 6 sacks, they got so many pressures on Patrick Mahomes for 3 quarters that it was just beyond amazing. And I only say 3 quarters because toward the start of the fourth, the game was already out of reach that the Eagles pulled their starters back as a sign of mercy. If the Eagles really wanted to, which I'm surprised that they didn't, especially seeing how they lost 2 years ago, I was not expecting the starters to get pulled at all because it's not like they were going to play next week for another Super Bowl. But it's just crazy to me, Libre, how it was almost like watching what happened with the Bucs and the Chiefs. It was almost like the exact same game, except different colors. And it was just like, you guys know me. Obviously, on this channel, we're never going to root for Chiefs. We're never going to root for Raiders, and we're never going to root for the Chargers to win. Not never. Unless it comes to a situation that benefits the Broncos in some sort of way, like playoff implications and seeding and whatnot. Then maybe. But aside from that, which is very rare, watching the Chiefs get their ass handed to them was just wonderful. Because it put an end to this whole 3P crap that we've been listening to for the entire season. Their confidence has got to be shot to hell. Okay. And it's going to ask a whole lot more questions that they have answers for, because now they have to go into free agency. Now they have to try to control their spending. Now they're going to have to try to figure out, because I can almost guarantee you, and this is a hot take, I can almost guarantee you guys that what we saw this past season is not going to happen again. I can honestly tell you that, because it just feels like a giant momentum has shifted in the NFL. And it's basically everybody in other podcasts that I've been listening to the last couple of days, I've been talking about the blueprint on how to beat the Chiefs. Vic Fangio just laid it out there in plain view. And it's a miracle that we didn't see it before when Vic Fangio was here in Denver. Libre, your thoughts?
For the game itself, I saw like a lot of people posting on the social medias and people reaching out to me saying, man, this game is so boring. I'm like, no, it's not. This is not boring whatsoever, because of the fact that we got to see Kansas City get their asses handed to them. And by Vic Fangio's defense, like how you were saying, there was no rushes whatsoever for this game. As a statistical stat for the game, there was not a single rush at all for the game itself. But what was the difference here, that I think that even if all the other teams had this recipe to go ahead and do that, they didn't have the personnel of what these defensive linemen for the Eagles that were able to go in there and just put that pressure with those 4. They had, hey, we're going to take our 4 and we're going to beat you 5. Try to stop us. And the amount of pressure that they actually got to him, and that's what disrupted a lot of the passing plays and so forth, didn't give him enough time to actually get out there. And I just actually saw something earlier today too about Travis Kelce, where he was coming off the line late, where the line was already moving and the defense was moving and he was just barely moving itself. I don't know if there was something that was going on with him, something else in his head, but he did not look like the Travis Kelce of old, or just even during the season itself. Where is it time for him to say, let's hang it up and let me just spend more time with Tay or whatnot? But the way that Vic Fangio put that defense and the way that he had them focused for this game was top notch. And you saw it right there. And truly, I felt like Vic Fangio should have been the MVP of the game.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that, Libre. I mean, it sucks. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is Vic Fangio's first Super Bowl victory.
It is.
Which is really, really hard to believe when I read that, because, I mean, for a man who's had a career, and as long as he has in the NFL, and he has done so much for so many defenses, and he was always just on the cusp of going to a Super Bowl, it kind of surprises me that the man has never won more than just one. Okay, like that Niners and Seahawks NFC Championship game in 2013, that was supposed to be Niners and Broncos, but it was just like a circus catch, a hell of a play by the Seahawks that just barely sent the Seahawks, I mean, to the Super Bowl. And I feel in some aspects, I kind of feel like, you know, maybe it was better that we faced the Seahawks and not the Niners, because that Vic Fangio, I mean, defense, they play tough, and we saw what he did when he was in Chicago as the DC. You know, they were just one doink away from going further into the playoffs that season. You know, but one bad play from the kicker, and it just ended their playoff hopes. But the fact, going back to what you said about Kelce, it just doesn't, like, there was something wrong with him, but I kind of think like he got into his own head. Okay, that game that they had against what was it, Buffalo, where they just kind of like it was like the Kelce show. He looked like the Kelce of old and all that stuff. To me, he kind of got it in his own head, and he kind of boosted himself up a little bit. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the Chiefs took the Eagles for granted, because in their mind, they went in there like, we're going to do this again. We've already beaten the Eagles. You know, we've only lost once. They weren't even counting the defeat to Denver because it was their backups, even though technically, I'll die on this hill, that win counts. Okay, it's 15-2. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
There's no asterisk. There's none of that. Okay. So they kind of went in there. I was kind of disappointed with Andy Reid because they had more time during a halftime than in any other time during the regular and playoff season. They had almost an hour, 45, 50 minutes, something like that, to come up with something different, to rally the troops, to do what it needs to be done to get the team back into the game, and they didn't do it. And if there's a double-edged sword to Andy Reid, that's basically it. That the man is kind of dead stuck in his ways, that he doesn't know or doesn't want to change because he's afraid of taking the risk. And that's really what it was. Because in that second half, the Chiefs had the ball and they did absolutely nothing with it. Okay. And then I had a couple of people tell me like, oh, well, you know, Patrick Mahomes scored twice in the second half. Yeah. Against the backups. You know,
well, not even with say the backup itself. It was almost at the point where it's just the prevent defense, where it's like, all right, we already have this huge lead, and it's just a matter of not putting in the 100% effort of what they were before during the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and not to mention that the Eagles' offense took their foot off the pedal, especially after Mahomes got strip sacked. Like, the Eagles could have scored easily twice. Okay, but they settled for 2 field goals because they felt bad. They showed mercy and the Chiefs were like it just didn't. I'm sorry. Like they were better off just running the ball until time ran out, type of thing. Because stat padding and garbage time, it's like it'd have been the same. It'd have been the same thing if you would have went to the 43-8 game with the Broncos and the Seahawks, and Peyton Manning threw for like 2-3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Let's say, like it's not going to matter. And in this game, it really didn't matter. But let's jump into some of the comments here. Your cousin Juan Marquez says, "Love the Super Bowl. Watching Patricia Mahomes getting picked off by Cooper DeJean for 6 was my favorite play." I think that was everybody who wasn't a Chiefs fan favorite play.
Oh yeah, and you know what? And the best part about it too is that was DeJean's first interception of the year itself, and to top it off, on his 22nd birthday. Pick 6 in the Super Bowl for your 22nd birthday. Trust me, this kid is never gonna forget his 22nd birthday ever.
D-Rock jumping in saying, "Fellas, belts to ass." D-Rock, high salute to you, my friend. He also says Kelsey needs to go ahead and move on to greener pastures. I did read an article where the Chiefs seem to be stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of his contract and whether to let him go or not. But he also asked us, "Fellas, what are your thoughts on Davante coming to Denver, or the odds of him coming at all?" You know what? I don't think Davante Adams is going to come to Denver. No, I honestly don't. If I'm not mistaken, he's not is he a free agent?
I don't think he is. I think he has one more year.
Traded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has 1 or 2 more years left in his contract, something like that.
Yeah, with the Jets, because of that deal that they worked out during the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And Davante's pretty much going to go wherever Rodgers goes. That's already a given. And because if the Broncos go out and get, let's say, hypothetically speaking, they go out and get a Davante, do you want to see him do all the crap that he did when he was with the Raiders? Like all the drama. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch on Netflix. I think it's still on there. Go watch that documentary, excuse me, Receiver, and you'll see all that I mean. Excuse me. But we don't want that type of negativity in Denver. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a great asset, but I'm just saying, do you really want him sitting there and talking about or critiquing Bo Nix at every drive and saying, if Rodgers were here? And I don't know. I just don't want that. I'm not saying the guy isn't a great player, but I just don't want that type of negativity in the locker room, because that locker room right now is hovering around Bo, and they're trying to be productive. They're trying to stay positive. And I feel like a guy like Davante Adams is just going to come in, and he's only going to be here for the paycheck, which most wide receiver agents that come in that get these big money contracts, that's what they're mostly here to do. They kind of give you that sentiment that they are not really there for the team. They don't abide by the team spirit or the motto or the ambience or the fans. They just go in there just to get a paycheck and go home. We've seen it happen a lot of time. Or they're not worth not one single freaking dollar from what it is that the team spent to get them. So me personally, I wouldn't pick him up or trade for him, just for the simple fact that I think his best years are behind him, and I feel like he's going to go wherever Rodgers goes.
What's the interesting part about that is I just was listening to the radio. I think it was yesterday, and I feel like what they did with Rodgers is they basically flew him in after he was done with his little sabbatical or meditation days or whatever, and basically brought him in and flew him in to say, "Hey, you're not going to be our starting quarterback next year. Like, it's already over and done." So, like, wouldn't a quick text message or something like that over the phone? But again, I feel like they have this animosity with him, and say, you know what, let's just bring him in. Let's just go ahead and say, you know what, we're bringing you in, and we're going to say you're not our quarterback going in the future itself. So, and you already know Davante Adams only wanted to be traded to the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers itself. He wanted that connection again. We thought you were going to have that same production that you had in Green Bay. And again, you have to realize that, yes, Aaron Rodgers is a lot older now, but he is not the player he used to be. Coming off of that surgery itself with his Achilles, and then it's not. I would be surprised if he lands anywhere else. If anything, it might be the Raiders. You never know what could happen. Mark Davis there. You never know what they could end up doing there. But again, that's also like another Pete Carroll thing. You're only that stepping stone to help get that next player ready to go to be handed off to someone else. You're not going to be that long-tiered quarterback anymore. So, yeah.
Your cousin Juan says he likes T. Higgins or maybe Deebo Samuel. I'll get into that in just a second, but D-Rock jumps back in here, Libre, and he says Amari Cooper is 30 and an unrestricted free agent. Our thoughts. Let me start off first by Juan's question or comment, I should say. I think T. Higgins in Denver would be really great. However, his price tag is going to be really high.
Yeah.
So it's going to be to who's going to take the biggest risk of committing their salary cap to his services. But you also got to remember that T. Higgins is really good because of what he can do with a Joe Burrow caliber like quarterback. So whatever team T. Higgins decides to go to, if he doesn't decide to stay in Cincinnati, you really have to hope that your quarterback can play somewhere to the aspects of a Joe Burrow, okay? Because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they contemplate themselves really well. T. Higgins and Joe Burrow contemplate themselves really well, okay? So usually when teams with the highest salary cap get players like a T. Higgins or the best player available, there's usually something in their team that's not really meshed yet or that they don't have it, which is the reason why they have a really high salary cap some of the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if T. Higgins goes to the Bears or the Browns. Well, maybe not the Browns because they have a bit of salary cap. But the Bears would probably be like the team that I think T. Higgins would probably go for, just for the simple fact that I see them spending big money on a big free agency signing. And to pair T. Higgins with Caleb Williams, that could turn a lot of heads, especially because I don't see them re-signing Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen's going to walk in free agency. I could be wrong on that, but if they can get a T. Higgins kind of guy, you don't need Keenan Allen anymore. You got Romeo Dobbs as your WR2. WR2. Amari Cooper and Deebo Samuel, I'm sorry. There's this. If you can't cut it with San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan's system, I know Deebo Samuel can be used in like what's that? Like a switchblade or a Swiss Army knife type of offense where he can play running back, quick run and all that stuff. But I don't know if a Sean Payton offense could use Deebo to the best of his ability. Not to mention that Deebo is going to want a good chunk of money to play for somebody else's team. So if you're going to get a Deebo Samuel type of player, you kind of have to make room for him, and you kind of have to make sure that the offense works with him because you don't want him riding the bench as like a WR2 or a 3 at that. Amari Cooper, 30. I thought he was going to turn the Bills around, but he didn't really do anything in Buffalo, if I'm being honest with you. He wasn't that big of a significant difference in a Buffalo offense. I mean, it was all pretty much Josh Allen. So I don't think that bringing a guy like Amari Cooper is going to do anything for us. For that matter, I'd rather just keep Cortland Sutton. What do you think, Libre?
I would love to have T. Higgins here just because you see the type of player that he is, the receiver. He's a big body type of receiver there. But that's also going to be like a factor of Cortland Sutton too. If we're going to be bringing him in, Cortland Sutton's going to get cut. Unfortunately, I feel like that's going to be a big factor right there. Do we want to interfere with the chemistry that him and Bo Nix has right now? You don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But would I like to see it happen? in a fantasy world, yes, that would be freaking awesome to have him in here. But like how you were saying earlier, that price tag, he's going to be taking a good majority of our cap space right now, of our available cap, and that's going to be hard to justify just for one player himself. Just earlier this week, Deebo Samuels goes into a podcast and talks about the team that has a team to really look at and be feared for. And he mentioned Bo Nix and the Broncos. That right there, just the willingness to say, hey, I recognize that. It's potentially where I could do that, and I would like to go there. But I also look at Deebo Samuels as how he relates to possibly with the team itself. I feel like we have Marvin Mims that basically does what Deebo does right now, what he's been doing there in San Francisco. So technically it's been quote unquote, this is what I've heard, we have the poor man Deebo Samuels and Marvin Mims here just because of the dollar amount that we're currently paying. There is that big thing where Deebo would have to be traded to us. So there are things that you have to think about that. You have to take on his contract. There are some things on his contract that seems to be very hard to work with itself. Hopefully it's something that the Broncos could come in and take over the contract and maybe have it restructured or do something. There's a lot of steps that are going to need to happen in order for that trade to help get that over here to Denver. It sounds like would be happy to be here in Denver with the upside that we have with Bo Nix and all that. And if we could get Deebo, I would love it. But again, I go back to as well is how many seasons has Deebo played all 17, 18 games? I don't think he's done it one time yet in his career. He's always been hurt. So that's another factor as well. Like, that's what we have to look into, and say, okay, you're going to be coming in, but how many games are you going to actually play for us during the season? So that's going to be a huge factor as well for me, thinking into that itself. Amari Cooper, I don't care for Amari Cooper. That's just me personally. I think he's just that another type of diva receiver. He's on the lower end of those divas, but he's somebody that I don't think we need in our locker room, especially in our wide receiver room itself.
And not to get too far off topic here, Libre and chat and folks watching us out there, but kind of bringing it back to the title of today's show, because Johnny worked really hard on the title. Walton-Penner, excuse me, really owning the situation here in Denver. So the reason I told Johnny I wanted to talk about ownership today is because, last week we talked about the importance of, what being a general manager is, especially the one we have in George Payton and everything that he's done for the Broncos so far. So with the ownership, I had this conversation with somebody at work. I can't remember who, but as you guys know, unfortunately, the Bears lost their owner, their longtime owner, Virginia McCaskey.
Yeah.
So rest in peace to her. But a lot of Bears fans, not players, they were kind of divided on what they want whoever takes control of the ownership to do now that McCaskey's gone, and she's, she was always set in her old ways. So with the Bears going straight into new, uncharted territory, I guess you could say, what's the form of attack? Some fans said offense, some fans said defense, and my boss said, bring back the Honey Bears, which is the cheerleaders that the Bears got rid of back in 1986, I believe. So there's that. And then we just kind of went into this conversation about how important ownership is. And I brought up the Broncos and what was going on with the Bolins. And I basically told them, I hope that your team doesn't get lost in the sauce. And they're like, oh, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, I'll tell you exactly what that means. The Broncos were a tight run group while Pat Bowlen was healthy. When Pat Bowlen got sick and he was no longer able to run football operations, and he had to step aside, it kind of was left to the president of the club, Joe Ellis, in some instances. And then there was nobody left from the Bolins to kind of oversee operations. So when you don't have an owner in that type of situation, a lot of things can go wrong, Libre, a lot. And when things go wrong, there's nobody to point the finger and say, hey, you need to do this. It was, instead of one finger being pointed at the problem, it was like 100 fingers pointing in all different directions, and nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what needed to get fixed. Just look at all the years that the Broncos have been just kind of in mediocrity. And there was nobody in the ownership to say, hey, this stops now. Okay, because the Bolin, Pat Bolin, unfortunately, was getting his health was deteriorating. His wife and his kids, or whoever, anybody in the Bolin family, they couldn't get it upon themselves to take the reins and say, we are going to fix this. It was just kind of like, oh, we're just waiting to see who's going to take control. There was in and out of court battles. We read it on Broncos media almost every day. And it wasn't until the Bolins decided to sell the team, and a couple of us were kind of skeptical, because we were thinking, like, are we going to be like the Amazon Broncos or the Microsoft Broncos, or something crazy like that. And then we got the Walton-Penners and Condoleezza Rice and I forget the name of the race car driver.
Michael Hamilton.
Escapes me. But you got a group of different people from different walks of life, who put all their money together and say, hey, we can do this. And they bought the team. And then all of a sudden, we finally have a sense of leadership at the top of the hill or mountain. So when stuff did hit the fan, especially and I was talking to Libre about this before the show, when stuff hit the fan in 2022, when the Broncos went on and spent all this money on Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson and gave up picks and all this stuff, and the best they can do was 5-12. It was a disaster. And if that sale had not gone through, Libre, we probably would still be in a tailspin of, nothing would have gotten set right, because there would have been nobody right to set the thing straight. And while we were not always in agreement with what the ownership was doing in terms of letting certain players go that we felt were in dire need, sometimes you need to make those tough decisions and deal with the afterthought or the consequences later, or just ride it out through. Especially cutting Russell Wilson. You guys have heard me say it a bunch of times. I wasn't a fan of that at first, but it got us Bo Nix, and it got us into the situation that we are now, and things are starting to look up. Libre, your thoughts?
I agree 100%. During that time was very frustrating with ownership, with just having where there's Joe Ellis, there was John Elway that was in the mix and so forth. When Pat Bolin did have to relieve his player, football operations itself. That first year was okay. It was just that second and third year and fourth year, that going on between what's the team really doing? Because Joe Ellis really did have really the full control of the team. And I know that the youngest daughter, I think Beth Bolin, I think that's her name. She was trying to get to take over, but it was her other siblings that didn't want to do anything else with the Broncos. They were done with it. They didn't want to do anything else with it, but because everyone had to be in agreement with it. There was 5 or 6 people that had to all agree with it. And she really wanted to take over the team. She went during that time. She went to business school. She went to all that stuff to get what she needed to do to take care of and take over operations of the team. But because the other siblings did not want to, they're like, all right, we're done with the Broncos. We just want to cash out. Let's just go ahead and get this over and done with, because this is, their father's thing. This is him. This is not what we did. This is not what we really have. This is not our passion. But itself, and then having Joe Ellis and Elway going in there and just it was a disaster during that time frame. Just during when they had the actual full control, it was hard just to all right, let's do this, let's do that. I feel like they let some personal business affect some of the transactions that could have happened. I'll say it, Kyle Shanahan. We could have had Kyle Shanahan here as our head coach. Instead of him going to San Francisco, he could have been here in Denver. But I feel because of Joe Ellis and John Elway, for whatever reason, at the time they had a beef with Mike Shanahan, and they're like, "Sorry, your dad's Mike Shanahan. Sorry, we are not going to do it. We're not going to hire you. Even though we're going to bring in you for an interview, you're not going to get hired because of those personal beefs that happened." I heard since then they have been possibly cleared up. I don't know what's going on, but once you actually had a group and so forth that actually took over and wants to be part of the ownership and wants to make the change in how our winning traditions it was back when Bolin was our owner, I felt that we could have been the Amazon Broncos or something, and we were joking. And honestly, we were halfway joking while talking about with Jeff Bezos taking over the team. We're like, what? We're gonna be inside the stadium. I'm gonna order something on Amazon, and a drone's gonna come over to my seat and drop it off at your seat with a drone. Like, we made jokes about it all the time, but just now, I'm just so happy with the Walton-Penner group and all that. Even though at the time we're great value. We're going to be called Great Value Stadium,
Great Value Broncos, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm so happy that they have taken over, and what they have done, they have been putting out lots of money into this team. And that's from the very first season where they took out the whole sod and replaced it for one game at the end of the season. And that's like a $400,000 makeover, and they did that, and because they care about the safety of the players itself, and that's already, you can tell they've replaced that sod a couple of times throughout the last couple of years itself, because they do care for these players itself. They're right now currently in the construction phase right now at the training facility at Dove Valley. So with that itself, them showing already how much they care just for this team, that makes me so much happy. And that's I think is going to start attracting more star players into Denver, and we talked about this last week as well, where players are going to want to play just because of the owners, because of how much they care for them and how they take care of them. It's a new facility, the newest technology, whatever we can do to get your body ready to go for the season. And I feel like this group that we have now is doing that, and you could see it. They do not hide it as well. There's some owners that hide it, try to put it under the rug or whatnot, not trying to get all the attention. Which again, that's what you want to do. But there's just so much stuff that they're doing right now. It's so noticeable. You have to look at it and see it and love it. And I'm so excited just going forward for this team. And they want a winning football program, and you could see that on what they're doing right now and providing for these players, doing what we need to do to help them out. And I love it.
I do too, my friend. Let's jump back into these comments real quick. Your cousin Juan Marquez saying Broncos fans and players are in good hands with these new owners. The mindset just feels like the way it was before John Elway took over. D-Rock jumping in saying, honestly, I was very, very hesitant about the new ownership because I see how Walmart is run and didn't want the same. But I was thrilled to be wrong. Fantastic job as of now. He also
agree,
goes on to
100%.
say,
Yeah.
I know they have the Mariana Trench of pockets, but to have trust in your GM, president, and head coach to eat that dead cap. And
Absolutely.
when you have owners like the ones we have, they were very, very, I want to say brave to stand on business in terms of letting go of the players that we knew were going to be huge dead cap hits and literally putting everything in Sean Payton's hands and say, yeah, we can't get you everything you want this year and maybe not next year, but if you can just make the best of what we have now, what we got you in, free agency last year and in the draft, and do that and do what you can with it, then, It's what we paying you. And Sean Payton last year earned every single dollar of his contract. Okay. Yes, there's a lot of mistakes he made along the way, but that's every head coach. There's no perfect head coach. Okay. Every head coach, no matter how good they are, no matter how much experience they have, as good as they have a season, they're going to make a lot of boneheaded plays. And you can almost throw a dart in last season at any one of the Broncos games, and you can call a play or two where you're looking at Sean Payton and say, "What the hell were you doing? What the hell was that?" What do they call us, Libre? Couch coaches? Yeah, that's what we are.
Yeah.
We're couch coaches.
Every step of the way.
Every step of the way, thinking we know better than the guy down there with the headset and the playbook in his hand. But to kind of circle back, it's just nice not having to worry about that anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Because there are 31 other teams that either run their team to the ground, like the Cowboys, where it's Jerry Jones's way or it's the highway, and hell be damned if the Cowboys do worse next year than this year, and then Jerry Jones is just firing random people and bringing in. That team is so messed up that their change in head coach is not going to do anything for that team. I think it's actually going to make them worse, if I'm being honest with you. I think the Cowboys are going to be worse, especially if Vic Fangio stays as defensive coordinator next year. Also, by the way, whoever in Miami decided to fire Vic Fangio for the 2023 season, because, and I don't know if this is true, but I read it, that the reason Vic Fangio was let go from Miami was because he was being too hard on his players. I hope everybody in that Dolphins uniform watched that Super Bowl, because that could have been Miami's defense that you saw out there. That could have been, and I'm saying could have been, because Vic Fangio walked into a team that already had Jalen Carter. They already had Brandon Graham, sort of, even though he got hurt, but he came back and he played his best football as before he rolled off into the sunset. I mean, that Eagles front line just freaking ate the Chiefs offensive line for breakfast for 4 quarters.
Absolutely.
Okay. With absolutely no help from the linebackers. Okay, it's just crazy how that came to fruition. Okay, and we just I got shocked. And for me, I really do hope that, since Vance Joseph is going to stay in Denver as a defensive coordinator, I really do hope they take that into fruition and they go get guys that can replicate that type of pressure and bring it to Denver, so that way we can go out and do that type of damage out there.
No, I agree. We're going to need to have, to replicate what they were able to do, is we need those dogs that are there that are nonstop for full 60 minutes of football itself when they're playing KC, because we just saw the recipe of what is going to be needed to be done to keep KC out. I've said this, and I was saying, and I was talking to other people as well earlier this week, this kind of performance in the Super Bowl was done 9 years ago against the Carolina. And what happened to Cam Newton after that? I think the Broncos broke Cam Newton's spirit and just said, you know what? I don't know. We can't do it anymore. And he was irrelevant after the couple of years after he was still playing. He did not do anything. I'm just hoping that this is the same type of scenario with Mahomes. But again, we all know that Mahomes is built different and so forth. So, but us and what we were able to do over the last couple of years right now, we went 1-1 for each of the last 2 seasons with them. I feel like just getting the right pieces, we can go ahead and take over the division again. I feel like for this game itself and what they went through and how they just got destroyed, the West is now wide open, and it's going to be open for any of us, minus the Raiders. The Raiders, I think, are still out. They're still far away, but it's going to be between us, between the Chargers and the Chiefs. It's going to be that type of tight race with us 3. But I feel like the Broncos are more in tune to be a better the next successor of this, so that we're going to be there the next 10 years and having the division itself and being that leader and being in late into playoff pushes and going into the Super Bowls.
Very well said. Guys, let me just make it clear. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just so you guys know, if you're using offensive language in the chat, you will not be highlighted. Or if you disrespect anybody in any sort of manner, you will be banned from the chat. So just letting you guys know, that type of stuff will not be tolerated on this show. But going back to D-Rock's comment, he said, imagine being on the hot seat, George Payton, and Sean Payton walks into your office and tells you we're cutting Russell Wilson. Oh, man. It's just crazy how he went in there. And you can almost say that after that Miami game, people were looking at Sean Payton just as bad as they were looking at Vance Joseph. You know, we were pointing fingers at everybody, you know, especially because, Sean Payton at the time, he chose Vance Joseph over what could have been Vic Fangio back in Denver as a defensive coordinator, because, Libre, that was the rumor going on.
Yeah.
It was going to be Vic Fangio, and, how it was going to be awkward because, he was former head coach. Now he's back, but and I don't know. I'm pretty sure that there's something that happened in that conversation that wasn't made public, Libre. I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, after seeing that Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure Sean Payton is probably, or whoever it was that did not bring Vic Fangio to Denver. As great of a job as Vance Joseph has done for the Broncos since that Miami game, I'm really hoping that Vance Joseph can turn it around next season and help bring another Super Bowl title to say, hey, Fangio, what you did was great, but I can match that. Okay, because as far as I know, I don't think Vance Joseph has any Super Bowl ring wins in his career as a player or as a coach. But Paul Schaefer jumping in saying, what's up, gentlemen? Okay, family show here. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
To you, my friend. And he also jumps in saying, Fangio said it was too soon to go to Denver. Fangio was Sean's first choice. You know what? After that 2018 wonderful season he had with Chicago, Fangio's getting up there in age. Okay, let's just be real. So the opportunity was there for the taking for him, and Vance Joseph was already let go. So, and yeah, a lot of people gave Denver crap because Fangio had never been a head coach before, and Denver was his first stop. And the Broncos literally just took a shot with him, like a shot in the dark, and said, what the hell?
Yeah.
This can either be something really great where Vic Fangio can bring that type of defensive mentality he brought to the Bears, bring it to Denver, or it could just be another crap show. And it wasn't either one of those. It was literally kind of swerving in between both. Okay, because Vic Fangio was not used to being down on the field with a headset. He was used to seeing everything from the box upstairs and doing what he does best and, calling plays as he sees fit. So I don't think I don't think he was ready for that type of limelight. I think he got a wider net than he was probably given out of any other team. I mean, the 2020 season when we had almost 20, 30 players hurt and Vic Fangio was literally putting out a defense with practice squad players. I mean, it was like, just making something out of something with tape. Libre, your thoughts?
No, I agree as well. And when you get those first-time coaches, especially coming from the coordinator position, offense or defense, you're thinking, look at how well that they're doing within that position itself. And you feel like and you do that with any job that's out there. You have this great employee that's doing such a good job at their position. You want to give them more responsibility. You want to take them to that next level itself. It's the same thing here in the NFL. It's just more as a more focused that they're now the head coach of a team itself. There's some people that are going to excel, and there's some people that are not going to do so well. we've seen that a lot, especially for first-time head coaches that they've come in, they're here for a little bit, and they haven't done that well because I don't think they were fully ready for the position itself, or they're just so good at the position, at being at the position itself on the coordinator side itself, where they're just focusing just on the one area of the team that they excel in, and that's what they do good. You see that all the time. You see that with Josh McDummy. You see, we've seen that with Vic Fangio. We've seen that with Vance Joseph. Like, they've been the head coaches, and one of the guys have been a head coach twice, 10 years apart, and he still failed at it. So now he's going back to New England, and he's going to be an offensive coordinator again there for them. But it's something that you never know what's going to happen. You have to take a chance on somebody. And if you can give that chance to somebody, and if they can excel, they could be the next Hall of Fame head coach in the league itself. Is that you have to give them a chance to hopefully that they flourish. And it's also in, like, if it was at our jobs and so forth, you're doing such a good job. They want your job wants to promote you to that next level. Let's see if you can do it. Are you going to be able to do it or not? And it just really comes down to that as well. So, but for this itself, yeah. And I was just looking it up as well for Vance Joseph. Yeah, he's never been a Super Bowl champ either at any of the levels itself. So it's something that I would love to see that here with him, as he's being our defensive coordinator. I feel that he has that. He has that same mentality that Vic Fangio has. So, but now we just need to get the talent, because a lot of it is he can only do so much. You can call the greatest game of your career, but if you don't have the talent that can help you get that there, then it's a moot point. So, but I feel like what the team is being able to do here, with George Payton, with the owners and so forth, they're going to be letting us go in there and help hopefully bring these talent now into Denver with what they're already doing. Like we talked about earlier about building that facility and doing all that, so that players are now looking at the Broncos and saying, you know what, I want to go there. This is what I want to do, is I want to go play for the Broncos. Look at Garrett Wilson has already said it as well. Like, he's actually changed and started following a lot of players on the Broncos itself. Deebo Samuels already came out on another podcast earlier this week and already said that, look at the team that you need to watch out for. It is the Denver Broncos. They're going to have this. They just need, he also said it in this podcast. He goes, the Broncos need one or two key pieces for them to be a high contention and making deep moves into the playoffs and getting into the Super Bowl. And if Deebo really wants that, he's going to create a scenario where he's going to make it a friendly deal for the Broncos to be able to come over. And if that's the case, I will open arms. I'll come over here. I'll go to the DIA and use your Uber account so I can go pick him up and take him straight to the facility.
Dreamweaver jumping in saying, what up, fellas? How good was that Super Bowl? He's also adding, after watching the Chiefs offensive line get curb stomped, doesn't it make us feel better how we're invested in ours? First of all, Jay, my high salute to you, my friend. Libre and I were talking about earlier in the show, amazing moment for you and Johnny last night, getting your very first Super Chat donation on the air here on Orange and Blue Network. So congratulations to you guys once again.
Good job.
I told Johnny that he should spend it on his dog Copper. So hopefully he remembers that when he gets his $5.
Right.
But I you know what we saw yesterday from Philadelphia was something that we probably haven't seen in 2 years. And Libre and I were talking about this earlier about with Tampa Bay. Previously doing the same thing, but Tampa Bay, they kind of blitzed their way in. They weren't playing no blitz in that Super Bowl that season, but it just goes to show you just how, when the Chiefs didn't have the refs in their pocket, except for one time, because that first flag was a bunch of BS. Okay?
That was.
And when they actually had to play real football, And in one play, and it's making the social media rounds, the Chiefs tackle accidentally lands on Patrick Mahomes and tackles him to the ground.
Oh, yes, I did remember that.
Excuse me. I forget what play it was, but it was funny as hell. But the Broncos' offensive line is definitely better than what Kansas City has. And Kansas City doesn't have a lot of money to go in and spend to fix their offensive line because they have to try to find to see if they're going to stick with Kelsey. They're probably going to have to ask Mahomes to reconstruct his contract because his contract is very, very pricey. And, they have to figure out what they're going to do at wide receiver, what they're going to have to do on defense, who's going to stay, who's going to go. Is Spags going to stay another year? They have a lot more questions than answers at this point. And while they're trying to figure out, and their confidence is shot to hell, man. It really is, because they're going to go limping into next season, still, licking their chops as to what the Super Bowl was. It's going to be a whole different teamscape, and this is the perfect time for the Broncos to strike. Okay, take advantage, take the division back, and catch them off guard. And they have a bone not just to pick with Kansas City, but with LA, because they got swept by the Chargers last year. So I'm really looking forward to that coming up. But ladies and gentlemen, it is past the 1 o'clock hour, which means we are ready for some overtime. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to this part of the segment, it's basically Libre and I freestyling it. We get to talk about anything that's on our minds, what's going on in life. Doesn't necessarily have to be about football. But if we can talk about football and find a way to tie it back to the Broncos, all the more better. Libre, me and you were talking about that we're going to have to go the next 6 months without, any NFL action. We're going to get little its and bits in between the free agency and the draft. And you did mention the UFL earlier as well, which is hopefully going to be a nice in between, which is what I think the whole point of the UFL is supposed to be.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. But I will say that for me, normally during the off season, I'm kind of like chill. And, I usually don't. My excitement doesn't usually get up until free agency, until the Broncos get like a big name player or something like that. And they give us reason to be excited. But for me, I'm actually excited because for the first time in a long time, Libre, maybe the last 9 years, there's just some magic going on in Denver, and you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because what happened in Buffalo, even though the Broncos weren't supposed to win that game and they shouldn't have lost the way they lost, but they left so much to the imagination in terms of saying, yeah, Buffalo, you got the best of us today, but just wait till you see what we're going to bring with next season. And for me, it's just really exciting. And I am so excited to see what the Broncos are going to bring to the table in September. And we have not had, as of this recording, we have not hit free agency period yet. We have not hit the draft yet. There's still like crazy trades and cuts that can happen anytime from now until whenever the deadline is in November. So much excitement going around in Denver. And Libre, you're actually in Denver. So do you think I'm crazy? Do you feel any of that, or what are you feeling, man?
Well, first, if we can highlight my my cousin's post.
Which one?
Juan with PS2.
Oh, sure.
So first of all, let's congratulate the best defensive player in the NFL right now.
Yes, sir.
PS2. The things that he was able to do this year was unbelievable itself. He went out there, locked down corner. We haven't talked about it. We haven't said anything because the NFL Honors was on Thursday right before the Super Bowl, and this is our first episode sent. So congratulations, PS2. Well-deserved. Looking forward to having you here for several more years and ending your career here. It's going to be fun watching you every Sunday. coming in and out and watching you flourish within this, and then hopefully maybe next year or the next several years seeing you as being named the MVP of the league itself, which will be phenomenal for you. And that's something that we know here in Broncos country that you can do it. But for the team itself, this is, yes, I agree with you 100%. Like here in Denver, just having the excitement that your team, what they were able to do with nothing, and the anticipation of going into next season. We now know we have a quarterback. We have our franchise quarterback, which we've been looking for the last 9 years. We have him. He is him. And that is going to be, and that's what's super exciting now is that, okay, now we got him. Now let's get these other pieces that just to complete this puzzle to get us to that championship ring itself again. And I feel like this team and the way that they're doing it, the way that how we're talking about with the ownership is going to give us that opportunity to get us back to that promised land. And you feel that excitement here. Now that the season's over, like you still feel it. You still have people wearing their Bronco gear and in and out. I was on Sunday, I was out shopping to get a couple of things just so I was making my tacos itself. And just talking about how exciting it was for just the team itself. And, you know, everyone's still repping, you know, there's years like when we were out here and there, you couldn't be excited for the team because you knew you were coming into the game and we weren't going to be competitive at all. But now you see their narrative has changed here in Denver. And I love seeing that. And I love being part of that here in Broncos country.
Mm-hmm. Paul Schaefer saying, well, not that one. That he loves the hats. I think Sean sacrificed last year to let young guys learn and see what we got in them. You know what? Let me tell you something, bro. This hat was the very first hat I ever bought for the Broncos. It's my very first one, and I know like the what is it, the bill or whatever they call it? It's kind of messed up. Like it's all that's because I've washed it so many times because these type of hats. I only wear fitted hats. I can't wear those ones with the little buckles on the back because, you know, it says one size fits all. Yeah, not this fat hat. Okay, that's a bunch of lies. And even though you can't see it because it's dark in here, I have a whole bunch of hats that I've bought in gray, red, and I told Libre this story when I was in Denver earlier this year. I went to the Lids there. And they had almost every single Broncos hat ever made, and I wanted to buy all of them. But I told my nephew, well, first of all, I don't have the luggage space for them, and two, it was cold, and I had my beanie on, and I'm like, and I don't want to buy it and not be able to wear it. And if I wear it to the game that weekend, then you know we're going to be up in elevation. I didn't want to be freezing. And I didn't want to throw it in my luggage because I didn't want it to get all smushed and stuff. So I was like stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know, it wasn't like before when I went during the summer where it was beautiful weather, you know, and I could wear it in and out of everywhere. So my plan is to, when I have more room one day, is to kind of like buy as many hats as I can and just have like a hat collection, kind of like what you have, Libre. I know Glenn. I think Glenn Hauser has hats too in his Museum of Broncos merchandise. So, and it's crazy because I never used to be a hat guy. Like growing up, I hated hats. If you go look at any of the pictures of me when I was like a teenager, whatever, never wore a hat, never wore a beanie. I hated that stuff. I was never a hat guy. And then when I used to work for this furniture company called Homeline many years ago, they bought us like winter uniforms. So it was like a vest and it was a beanie, and I had to wear the beanie and I didn't want to. And then like I would get, you know, yelled at by my bosses, like, you have to wear the beanie, because it's cold, and it had the logo and then everything on it. So I wore it, and then like it became something that it was like with me. Like I did everything in that damn beanie. Even when I wasn't at work, I was wearing it here at home, you know. And I'll see if I can find it. It's on my Facebook. I have a picture of me wearing it. I'll try to find it. I'll send it to you, Libre. But ever since then, but no, not for me. I don't have a bald spot yet. I got gray hair because I'm getting old, but I don't have a bald spot yet. And every time I go to my barber, and I always tell him, like, if you count the gray hairs on my head, it's coming out of your tip. But
that's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a sombrero like the one Libre has on, but unfortunately, I don't have anywhere to put it in this room. So until I get bigger space, I'm gonna have to put that on the back burner. What about you, Libre?
Yeah, it's again, like the hats. I have tons of hats. This is only a portion of the hats that I have on my wall. I love any type of hats itself because I also help volunteer with the Great American Beer Fest itself that's held here every year, and that's like the Super Bowl of beers here in Denver. It's held at the end of September or early October every year itself. So and I get hats from breweries, from just the festival itself that they give us, because I'm a captain of an island, and I'm part of the beer service team. So I have all these different hats that I collect, and it's just something that I like. But I do want to upgrade the sombrero. I got this at Party City a couple of years ago, and just threw a couple of stickers on. Here's an actual pin that the Broncos en Español gave me itself that I put on there. But these are stickers. But I do want to get a nice, good custom one that has it, like the one that you showed me before, where it has the it's just like all the way around the brim. Just says like Denver Broncos, and it just goes all the way around. I want something similar to that. I don't know if I'm going to go and get it custom made, where it says Bronco Libre all the way around, instead. But have to wait and see what we can do and see if I can find somebody that actually do it.
Yeah, Paul Schaefer has a question for you here, Libre. He says, "Are you a super fan with season tickets?"
Sí, señor. I'm a huge super fan, and again, the one I look at it as being a super fan is like you could be a super fan anywhere. It's just who you're supporting, making sure that you have that dedication itself. I have people come up to me, especially at the games, and yes, I am a season ticket holder, and because of the way that you represent yourself, the way that you are set up, I help a 5K every year that we run, a 5K for Cleft Lip and Palate. It's called Dash for Smiles. Being part of the community, and that's part of it itself as well, is if you're part of the community, you're representing the Broncos, and you are making sure that you're just like a face of the Broncos, and people just recognize you for that itself. I have people just doing over the last several years that will hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, on Facebook, and so forth, saying, "Hey, are you having a tailgate? Is it okay if we go and visit you?" And if you're ever in town or anything like that, please hit me up. Please send me a message. I'm more than happy to have you guys visit our tailgate and so forth, or even during the off season, hit me up if you happen to be here in town. Just send me a message. Maybe we can go get a drink, go have lunch, or go to have dinner. Like, I'm more about having to have the connection with the community and people that are out here. So yeah, to answer your question, Paul, yes, I am considered a super fan for the Broncos, and I do have season tickets.
That picture behind you, Libre, is that you with the actual Lombardi trophies?
So that right there is the picture of me. Yes. So it was at a fanfare at the stadium itself. And it was at the stadium during the off season, where they allowed us to get onto the field, and they had the trophies there at the stadium. And so we were able to take pictures with them. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Were you able to actually touch them or no?
No, they don't allow you to touch them. I think there's events that they have where you can actually hold them and actually physically hold them, but it's in a secure room where there's not many people that are there itself. But then you have to wear white gloves. You have to wear gloves in order to hold them. These ones were only displayed on a table, and then people can just go over there, see them, take pictures, and then just take pictures and just actually view them up close, but not actually handle them.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know if each team has one, but there is a guy or guys that go around and they clean the Lombardi's I don't know if it's every day or constantly or how frequent, but excuse me, that's their job. They go around all over the country, and probably I'm guessing when they do have it, because not everybody has to wear gloves, probably more
Correct.
like just the general public. But when they showcase it at events with players and stuff, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
actually somebody that goes or that's actually paid. I don't know if it's by the NFL or by the team itself, and that's their job, is to kind of, because I never, if you ever want to see how dirty it can actually get, not dirty like as in dirt, but just like fingerprints. If you go back and look at the Eagles one, it's just completely covered in
Yeah.
fingerprints, and it's just like it loses its shine literally as soon as the festivities get started.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's crazy, just how dirty it can get, and how if that's a job application somewhere, then they should. I need to go file something on Indeed.
All stadiums offer stadium tours itself. And they have, I think, part of the stadium's tour itself will get you to where the trophies are at as well. So, and I think that's with any team that has won a Super Bowl that has it available, you can hopefully do it. I know, like during this last year, when the group from Mexico that came up, that following Monday, I know that they had like a private tour set up for them, and they were able to actually see the Super Bowl trophies. I didn't because I see a lot of those guys take pictures with them and we're posting them, but not a single one of them actually was holding it. So it's still possibly like you could still be right there, the actual trophy that was given to the team.
Were you at the parade in 2015?
I was. What's
Where
funny
were
is
you?
So I was right there because my office building used to be right there on Colfax and Broadway. And I literally went in for the morning and I said, all right, guys, I'm going to go take a long lunch. I literally was there for the rest of the day. And then I went back into the office saying, all right, guys, I'm actually now leaving because I logged out for lunch and all that. But I was there because you were there so long, and it was the networks because we had over 1 million people in that little area of downtown Denver, where the city and county building and the Capitol is at. There was just so many people there. But the crazy thing is, just earlier this week, I think it was on Monday, that it popped up on my memory saying 9 years ago, showing the videos and all that. I was like, damn, I go, this was already 9 years ago. We were celebrating a Super Bowl championship.
That street or that avenue sounds familiar. Colfax. I remember putting it in my GPS. I don't know if I told this story on the show, but I told Libre when me and my nephew were in Denver back in October after the Panthers game, we were waiting for our flight to take off, and but we had time to kill, so I had a rented car, so we were just kind of driving around. I told Libre that we went to downtown Denver, and like I wanted to eat something that's like I couldn't get at home, like something actual Denverish cuisine. And me and my nephew ended up going to a Giordano's, which is what Chicago's pretty much got all over the place, So the irony in that. And then we were driving around, and I wanted to go to the DNVR bar, but I thought that it was like an actual bar. So I remember me and my nephew were sitting across the street from it, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I'm hoping that maybe somebody that I know from DNVR steps out so I can say, hey, but I didn't go in because I looked online to see if it was like over. You have to be over 21, obviously, to consume alcohol and all that stuff, and I couldn't get a clear answer, so we just kind of just kept on driving. I don't even remember where we went. We were just kind of driving, just killing time. But I do remember Colfax Avenue was on the GPS thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't even think about the parade route. But it didn't hit me until after I returned the car. I'm like, oh, that's what we could have done. And my nephew's like, what? I'm like, I think like we could have drove down where the parade was 9 years ago, and I could say this is where Peyton Manning and Von Miller and all those guys drove down, and there were 1 million people here. And I remember watching it on TV. I was emotional as hell that day because it was great to finally see my team win their third Super Bowl trophy.
And I was just reading some of the comments, and I agree with Paul Schaefer. We need Super Bowl 60 to come back. Let's just do it. I agree with you 100%. And you know what? And what's the crazy thing about this as well is that the Broncos could have that team and go in there and do that. And which, just like they did this year, where they surprised the league and win double the amount of wins that they were projected by Vegas and so forth. They can actually go out there and do it. And I feel like this team can do it. And like how Debo was saying earlier, and what I was indicating earlier as well, we just need one or two key pieces to help out with this offense. And I think that we'll be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's nothing else on you guys' mind, I think we're going to cut it there today. I'd like to thank everybody in today's chat that was here with us. Paul, Juan, of course, Dreamweaver. Thank you so much for stopping by. Alex Smith, I know you didn't leave a comment for us, but you were in the chat, so we're going to say thank you. D-Rock, of course. And if I'm missing anybody, I'm scrolling up. And Dakota Whitehouse. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our show today. Just want to give you guys a quick reminder for you to please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like here on the Orange and Blue Network. Your support is greatly appreciated here on the show. Also, this is a simulcast, so we're also on the MHRT network. So please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like on all their stuff as well. Shout out to our sponsor for today's show, Dubby. As always, Dubby is great, and they have plenty of good stuff without all the bad and all of their energy drinks. So make sure you go and get yourself some Dubby. Make sure you use the code NRWOB. Thanks to our friends over at the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast for the 10% off at checkout. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, and that's really a victory in itself.
So excited.
Audio listeners, please make sure you 5-star us, screenshot, send it to us on our social so we can give you a shout out and personal thanks for your support. My Twitter handle is at a 6'10" Mexican. Bronco Libre is at Bronco Libre 5280. Make sure you continue to support any and all forms of podcasts and articles, anything Broncos out there. They desperately need your support, especially as we start this, I don't know, drought is the right word, but this stretch of no NFL football for the next 6 months. So for Bronco Libre, my name is Adan Diaz, and this has been Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue and MHRT networks. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. Have a good one. And as always, go Broncos!
Let's go!